Previously, we are going to see the inflation products. So, in a welfare state, the government takes primary responsibility for the welfare of its citizens, as in matters of healthcare, education, employment, infrastructure, social security, and other development needs. To facilitate these, government needs revenue. So, taxation is the primary source of revenue for the government for incurring such public welfare expenditure. In other words, government is taking taxes from the public through its own hand, and through another hand, it incurs welfare expenditure for the public at large. So, however, no one enjoys handing over its hard-earned money to the government to pay taxes. Thus, taxes are compulsory or enforced contribution to the government revenue by public. So the government may levy taxes on income, business profits, or wealth, or add it to the cost of some goods, services, and transactions. So, what is tax? Tax refers to a mandatory financial contribution to the country's revenue imposed by the government on the income of people, business profits, activities, or included in the cost of goods, services, or transactions. So taxes are the primary source of government revenue, which is used to finance government expenditure on the provision of education, healthcare, public utility services, development activities like construction of roads, dams, canals, highways, expressways, and etc. The type of taxes in our country is direct tax and indirect tax. So direct tax consists of income tax, wealth tax, and indirect tax we have GST, custom duty. So the person paying the direct tax to the government directly bears the incidence of the tax. Progressive in nature, high rate of taxes for people having higher ability to pay. So burden of tax borne by the person himself, he cannot transfer his tax burden to any other in the case of direct tax. And indirect tax, person paying the tax to the government collects the same from the ultimate customer. So thus incidence the taxes shifted to another person, regressive in nature, all the consumers equally bear the burden, irrespective of their ability to pay. The burden of the tax can be shifted to another person. So types of taxes, it is direct and indirect. So a direct tax is a tax paid by a person on whom it is legally imposed. Indirect tax, the person paying and bearing tax is the same. It is the tax on income and property. In indirect tax, and indirect tax is a tax imposed on one person, but partly or wholly paid by another. In indirect tax, the person paying and bearing the tax is different. It is the tax on consumption or expenditure. The difference between the direct tax and indirect tax. The direct tax, payer of the tax and sufferer of the tax are one and same. That is, impact and incidence on the same person. The payer of the tax, not sufferer of tax, whereas sufferer of tax is not paying directly to the government, but its impact on one head and incidence on another head. And income-based taxes, direct taxes are the income-based taxes, and indirect taxes are supply-based taxes. And in direct taxes, rate of taxes are different from one person to another person, and rate of duties are not different from one person to another in case of indirect taxes. And the entire revenue goes to the government. Entire revenue goes to the central government of India in case of direct tax, and revenue sources to central government of India as well as state governments, that is CGST and SGST in case of indirect taxes. Indirect tax, the previous year income assessed in the assessment year. In indirect tax, there is no previous year and assessment year concept. In direct tax, Central Board of Direct Taxes is an important part of Department of Revenue. And in case of indirect tax, Central Board of Excise and Customs, CBEC, is an important part of Department of Revenue with effect from 1 to 2019. The Central Board of Excise and Customs is being renamed as the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, CBIC, that is CBEC renamed as CBIC. So direct taxes progressive in nature and indirect taxes regressive in nature. Thank you.